This is Franchise Today, brought to you by FRM Solutions, providers of the best-in-class software solutions for franchise relationship management. Franchise Today is your destination for weekly information, conversations, and interviews with accomplished industry leaders, all of whom share best practices for sustainable growth and sensible franchising. Here now, your host, Stan Friedman, to kick off this week's podcast.
Today is Wednesday, September 8th. I'm Stan Friedman, and this is Franchise Today. This week, the story of a fascinating person and brand. Bryce Henson is CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, the world's fastest-growing fitness bootcamp franchise. With more than 10 years of experience in the fitness industry and owning multiple Fit Body Bootcamp locations, his passion is spreading fitness to the world, while also mentoring fitness professionals on how to grow their businesses and make life-changing differences in local communities. Bryce also co-leads Fit Body Bootcamp Mastermind Group, an exclusive coaching group for high-performing fitness professionals. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, Bryce grew up in Michigan, but has spent most of his adult life in California. He's a graduate of Michigan State and speaks Brazilian Portuguese fluently, having lived in Florianopolis, Brazil. He holds citizenship in the USA and Portugal and is a fitness expert, a coach, an author, a speaker, and an inspirational leader. And he's right here in 2 minutes or less to tell us all about it.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
My goal each week is to bring you information from those who have been there, done that. Well, that describes my good friend Jerry Henley and his Launch to Growth consultancy to a T. At Launch to Growth, their motto is scale to get better before you scale to get bigger, which could apply to new emerging concepts just as easily as to established legacy brands, where culture and processes have degraded over time, leaving less profitability for both the ZOR and the Zs. Using proven system and soul tools and solutions, Launch to Growth teaches you how to drive unit-level success across your entire franchise organization, positively impacting both your culture and bottom line. You see, franchisor success is not just about systems. It's also about the soul of the people. Jerry's programs create a win-win franchise model, defining and aligning franchisee and ZOR success so that everyone achieves their respective goals. It's franchising done right, deploying a four-step process for scaling smartly, utilizing the proven system and soul software platform and methodology. Create alignment, build trust and accountability with systems and processes that actually work to scale profitability across all areas of your organization. Learn more about Jerry Henley and System and Soul at his website, launchtogrowth.com. Tell him you heard about it on Franchise Today for a no-cost, no-obligation initial consultation. Once again, find them at launchtogrowth.com. Fit Body Bootcamp is the world's fastest growing and most popular indoor fitness bootcamp franchise. Each location offers guided 30-minute group workouts that provide the accountability systems of personal training, along with the social benefits of group training. Relying on minimal equipment, interval, and resistance training, the weight loss-centric workouts are designed to produce maximum results in the least amount of time. Bedros Keuilian founded Fit Body Bootcamp in 2008 and awarded Bryce multiple franchises prior to inviting him to join the business as an executive, a partner, and most recently as CEO. Bryce Henson, welcome to Franchise Today.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate you having me on. Excited to deliver for your audience today.
I'm sure that you will, and I'm sure they're going to appreciate it. You know, Bryce, getting ready for today's podcast, I did a little studying up on you and on your partner, Bedros, and it to me seemed more like I was reading Amazon Kindle's bookstore trying to decide what my next favorite action thriller read might be, because you guys have an internationally intriguing background, the two of you, and I can't wait to share more of that story, for you to share more of that story and help the audience learn more about the backgrounds of you guys and what it is you're up to. So it's going to be an exciting episode of Franchise Today that I'm sincerely looking forward to.
Well, I appreciate that and definitely excited to hear or to be here and serve your audience in any way that I can. So excited for our conversation.
All right. Well, let's start the way we always do, which is with the agreement that franchising is unintentional. We don't find it, it finds us. When was that and how did it look for you?
Ooh, well, that's an incredible question. And I would definitely wholeheartedly agree in the sense that franchising found me and not the other way around. So I'll give you the backstory, and I'm certain there's some nuggets that you and your audience can take away. And if there's any follow-up questions, feel free to ask for those so I can clarify. But my story starts out actually in the South, Atlanta, Georgia. I know that you're based there as well. And I spent my first 10 years there. But my mother was originally from the state of Michigan, and we were in a very volatile, chaotic situation with my father. So we escaped his grasp at a young age. I was about 10 years old, and we moved to the state of Michigan where my mom grew up for the better part of 11 years, and certainly came from humble beginnings from the first world standard. And I say that because I've lived also in the third world in South America for a couple of years, and there's definitely a very big difference between first world, growing up in a humble situation from the first world to the third world. But in any case, put myself through school, and I ended up graduating from Michigan State. And when I did, I ended up getting a sales position out in Los Angeles, California. And it was a move that put me on the West Coast, and I've been here since. And for all the reasons that it was incredible moving to California, the palm trees, the blue skies, Hollywood, the beaches, I would be lying to you, Stan, if I didn't, really provide visibility that first year and a half, that there was more dark days than there was light days. And I think that the reason is there I was, 21 years old, without any tangible professional skills, life skills, moving 3,000 miles away from home. But more importantly, I just didn't have the zest for life, the ambition. I didn't have a good level of fitness. And I wasn't obese by any stretch of imagination, but I was about 20 pounds overweight. I had very little muscle in my body and lacked confidence and enthusiasm. And that was until a fortuitous situation happened where my best friend from college, his name was Adam, moved to Southern California, and we ended up living together. And Adam was not on the cover of Men's Health magazine, although he could have been. Really fit guy, six-pack abs, a lot of confidence, zest for life, and all the girls flocked to him. And certainly I looked up to that, especially being at such a young age. So in early 2007, after living together for a few months, I finally mustered up enough courage to ask Adam, hey, how do you lift weights? How do you work out? How do you eat? And really started that dialogue. And one thing led to the next and got my commitment. And he was on board for helping me train. So for the period of about 2 years, but really for the first 6 months is when my major transformation happened. But we trained together, and he introduced me to fitness, to circuit training, to nutrition coaching, and really to accountability, and really all those things that we do at Fit Body Bootcamp. So that was kind of my foundation for fitness. And, one of the other gifts of fitness, not only from an aesthetic perspective, but it just changes your life. It gives you more enthusiasm and zest and confidence. So what had happened when I went through that transformation, I became a mediocre sales rep, or one of the worst in the company, to all of a sudden being the best sales rep in the company within a 12-month clip. And at that point, I knew that this really had changed my life. So I was at the gym one day, and I remember someone asking me, Bryce, how do you lift weights? How do you eat? And this light bulb came on, because never in a million years up until that point, even though I went through my own transformation, did it occur to me that I could actually help some other people with their own fitness transformation journey. So even though at the time I couldn't consider or even imagine that fitness would be a full-time focus or a full-time career because of my successful sales career, I did think that I could get certified and train people on the nights and weekends to help supplement my income, but also to kind of give back the gift of fitness. And that's exactly what I did. I did the best thing that I possibly could, which was to find the gold standard of fitness certification, personal training, which was the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And over a period of a few months, I studied, I got certified as a certified personal trainer. And I think what I did was I updated my Facebook profile to certified personal trainer. And when I did, that was the entry point of me learning about Fit Body Bootcamp, as I became beginning to be marketed to from this gentleman named Bedros Keuilian, who's now a dear friend, a mentor, and a business partner of mine, who's also the founder and president. I used to say CEO, but now I assume that role, but he's the founder and president of Fit Body Bootcamp. And that's really when I was introduced to the concept of him providing information, insight, and marketing material about this little franchise, which again, I got on his list in 2010 or 11, but it wasn't really until 2012 when I started paying attention to the opportunity, which really found me and was the catalyst of how I'm here speaking with you today, Stan.
So what role did you assume in the partnership? It wasn't a partnership yet then, wasn't? You were joining him as an employee, or how did that work?
Yeah, great question. So at that time, when I first got introduced to the opportunity and got on his email list, it was really, I was the client per se. se. So I bought a couple of his online courses on how to grow a personal training business and really how to sell personal training. And I was on his list for the better part of a year and a half. Then he started really marketing Fit Body Bootcamp. So at that point is when I started learning about the opportunity. I did my diligence. I did about 3 or 4 months of full diligence researching not only Fit Body Bootcamp, but franchising in general. And then in August of 2012 is when I decided to kind of take the leap and become a franchisee. So I first started our business relationship being that Bedros founded Fit Body Bootcamp. I was a franchisee. This is about the summer of 2012 and ended up launching my first location in a little town called Yorba Linda, which is in Orange County between Los Angeles and San Diego. I launched that in November 2012. And that's actually how our relationship began, being that I was a franchisee, he was the franchisor, and ultimately joined his mastermind. And that's actually when the coaching began and the networking and really the relationship building began. That's actually the foundation of how I got started within Fit Body Bootcamp as a franchisee.
So you became a franchisee first and then got involved corporately with the company. And less than 10 years later, you're the CEO of the corporation and still a franchisee, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I guess I'll kind of give you a little bit of story on how my position came within the franchisor.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so in 2012, as I just mentioned, I launched my first location. I also joined his mastermind group, which was a high-level coaching, leadership coaching group to really help provide more leadership and thought and idea incubation for some of our most successful owners in our brand. And I joined that group, and it wasn't all sunshines and rainbows. I definitely had my fair share of struggles and challenges. In fact, within the first 3 months of me opening my locations, the doubt fairy caught in and things weren't moving as quickly as I wanted to. So I actually scheduled this emergency 911 call with my franchise business coach and then also Bedros at the time, because the company was, the franchise was much smaller than it is today. So I had that ability, but kind of got some course corrects, some great coaching. And that really was the catalyst of scaling to 5 Fit Body Bootcamp locations from 2012 to 2017. And right about that time is actually when Bedros reached out to me because our brand was actually hitting this hockey stick period of growth. And I'd been in coaching rooms with him for years at that point. I had scaled many gyms, a handful, as I just mentioned, became a 7-figure earner and had a lot of success, but also developed a strong relationship. And I think a big learning lesson here and a message for your audience is there's this quote that I heard recently saying that there's money in the transaction, but there's wealth in the relationship. And because of the relationship that I developed with Bedros over those handful of years, when the opportunity came up where because of the franchise growth, he was needing a vice president, he actually turned to me, made me that offer. And over a period of a few months, because we negotiated a few things and I was dead set on my path at the moment. So initially I didn't give him a yes, but after having some follow-up conversations, made the decision in 2018 to join forces as on the franchisor side, first assuming the vice president role, but then fast forward a few years later and working and helping shape the brand as the vice president and on the leadership team. He actually just made the offer and I assumed the CEO role this past June at our annual World Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona. So that's kind of how the high level story came to be.
What a great story that is. It doesn't get any better than that.
Well, thank you. And I always have considered myself like an underdog, kind of that, hardworking, always the white collar mentality, but the blue collar work ethic. And in my acceptance speech, I kind of took a step back and said, I made a few promises to our brand. I will give everything that I possibly can, that I'm certainly going to make mistakes along the way, but I won't stop until they're supported at the fullest of levels. And big vision is to make this the biggest and best fat loss program on the planet, but also that I started from the very beginning, from the very ground up, being an owner, but also putting my life savings into this model, where at first I was the owner, but I was also the coach, the bookkeeper, the accountant, the janitor, all the way every single position. And I think, Dan, being very honest, that perspective has really, really helped shape my mindset and also the value that I can bring to the franchisees and our brand in general, because I know every single part of the business, being that I've lived and breathed every part of that business for the last 9 years.
So in your role, let me back up first and ask you this. When you reference Bedros as your business partner, are you a partner in the actual franchise concept now as well?
I am, and he's certainly very gracious and generous to offer me partnership in the brand. And that way I just have more buy-in, if you will. So that's something that we've partnered on. And also we have a couple other side partnerships in a technology company and a fitness coaching group, which I've referred to as the Elite Mastermind. So we have a few different things, including our own podcast, which is called the Fitness Franchise Podcast. So we have a few different areas of partnership within our business scope.
Well, it's quite an interesting business model that you're in. Seems to me to be some very crowded space. And I want to talk about that from a competitive set as to how it is that your consumers find the value that they do in your brand. And then two, what COVID has meant to you and how much pivoting had to take place over the course of the past year and a half, which I know and many people in the fitness business have struggled with. I don't know how it impacted you, but I'm going to ask you to share that with us as well.
Absolutely. Well, I'll start with kind of our unique selling proposition, which I guess is the first angle, being that the fitness space and many industries and spaces are competitive, and definitely the fitness space. And I think also too, just the barrier of entry is relatively low in the sense of getting a certified personal training, even if it's the gold standard, takes a few months. It certainly takes years to become an incredible coach, but it's relatively an easy lift to get the business off the ground. That's not to say that it's easy lift to make it successful. Those are very two separate things. But our unique selling proposition is really the culture and the community within our brand. And we have an incredible training system. We have something called the Fit Body Way, which is really encompasses all of our systems, our processes, from our nutrition strategy to our sales strategy, to our marketing strategy, to our client success strategy, that really we're able to offer our ownership at a very high level, which gives them the tools to run their business from a systematic approach perspective. And then we can also really layer in the training on the relationship, the community, and the culture that's a result. And a big tagline within our franchise and trainings is primarily, we're not in the nutrition business. Primarily, we're not in the fitness business. Primarily, we're not in the coaching business. Yes, we do all those things, but primarily we are in the people business. And if we focus on people and make them the lifeblood of our business and really dive deep in relationships and the community and the culture, everything else just seems to magically work better. So I wanted to kind of start there. Does that make sense?
It makes nothing but sense to me, actually. It doesn't matter whether it's fitness or daycare or elder care. Franchising is people first always. So you've got that box checked right.
Oh, well, thank you. So that was kind of hitting on the point of just what separates our brand and our locations and why we've been able to scale to hundreds of locations within a very short period of time across North America. The second point that you'd mentioned was COVID. And certainly for many businesses, COVID hasn't been kind. And specifically, the fitness business is one of the biggest industries that got hit. Same with restaurants, and there's a few lists of others as well. But thankfully, with strong leadership and strong vision from our leadership team, and also Bedros, our founder as well, we're able to pivot, probably the best pivot and create an outcome, probably the best situation that we probably could hope for. Now, that said, we've had some contraction, and I think that's just inevitable, especially with our business model being brick and mortar businesses, studios, in-person training, specifically with COVID and the lockdown. And let's face it, every state, specifically focusing at the US, handled the protocol very different. So states like California, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, that had more lockdown and heavier restrictions hit harder than some other states like Florida or Texas or South Dakota. But across the board, the value that we were able to provide for our franchisees is, number one, within 24 hours, we were able to pivot to virtual training. So taking our in-person training and actually pivoting that to virtual and remote training via Zoom, we could actually provide that content. So we provided a lot of instruction to our franchisees on how to execute that. We were also able to leverage, because we're a franchise system and we have many locations that deliver incredible training sessions. One of our franchise business coaches named CJ and his team in South Dakota, we were able to leverage them and their team, and they actually shot pre-recorded videos for all of our brand that we were able to distribute across the way. So from a pivot perspective, we were able to provide the coaching on how to execute the live virtual. When I say live, meaning at the specific moment in time where your coach, instead of training you one-on-one, just training through a Zoom portal. And then additionally, the pre-recorded option. So we were able to pivot that very quick fashion. We also partnered with a technology platform that enabled our coaches to be able to connect with our clients and supplement the training with coaching and nutrition connections and seminars. So that really, really helped salvage the situation and allowed all of our gym owners to still maintain clientele, even though their physical brick and mortar doors were shut, which is absolutely huge. We pivoted to daily Facebook Lives. Bedros, we would conduct those on a daily basis to basically provide visibility, coaching, and instruction to all of our owners. And that's specifically in the time frame from March to June of last year in 2020. And then I think that one of the biggest things is, as we kind of passed that 3-month clip where many of our gyms were forced to shut down and lockdown, when we came out on the other side, and now all of our locations across the way are back in person, but there was a period of time where we couldn't go back to just traditional training as we had done. We actually developed and created what's called the Fit Body Train in Place modality, which we're able to adjust the circuit training model, which typically all our coaches and our clients are kind of moving across the floor within a 30-minute session. But instead of doing that, at least the first step back, taking a step-ladder approach, was creating that train in place modality where each of our clients had an individual training box. So they were socially distanced, and it restricted the amount of clients that we could train, but it allowed us to train them more effectively and within the protocol that many of the local jurisdictions laid down. So those are just a handful of different things that we're able to do from a franchisor perspective to really help our franchisees not only stay afloat, but actually thrive during this period. And it made all the difference. And certainly I wouldn't have wished that on anyone. We definitely don't want to do that again. But actually there is a silver lining. And to finish on this point would be it actually strengthened the relationships of our brand just because we were able to, in that crisis time, come up and really deliver at a high level and strengthen the relationship with our franchisees who executed.
Tell you what, let's do. Let's take a quick break right here. And when we come back, let's talk about the franchise side of the business and how you go about bringing the right people to the party and who those people are. We're speaking today with Bryce Henson, the newly minted CEO of the fast-growing Fit Body Bootcamp, and we'll be right back.
Franchise Today will be right back, but first, a word from our sponsors.
Hey, franchisors of restaurants, bars, grills, and taverns, and multi-unit franchisees, listen up. This message is for you. Atmosphere TV wants to help you cut costs on overpriced cable TV for your business and either replace it completely or partially if sports programming is essential at your locations. What Atmosphere TV provides are 100% free programming options with nearly 50 channels of highly engaging and entertaining programming that is audio optional and guaranteed to please your customers and even increase their average ticket per visit. So here's how it works. Atmosphere hooks you up with an Apple TV HD receiver loaded with nearly 50 channels of fully licensed, no cost to you, fun and lifestyle programming. These channels include Chive and Red Bull TV, bloopers, superhuman feats, and an array of viewing options that don't require sound to be enjoyed. And this offer is not just limited to restaurants or bars. No, any business with a TV screen in its waiting room can benefit from Atmosphere's free programming offer as well. So what are you waiting for? Cut the cord on overpriced cable and get Atmosphere TV with its 100% free, engaging, and entertaining programming options. Keep your guests happy while they wait to see you instead of watching the clock and their wait times. Chiropractors, doctors, dentists, auto repair shops, anyone with TVs in your waiting rooms, jump onto this amazing offer today. And if you text the word franchise to 474747, Atmosphere will waive the $100 setup fee for the Apple TV HD receiver that they'll ship to you as well at no cost. Atmosphere TV, changing the way businesses view television. Find them online at atmosphere.tv, and remember, text franchise to 474747 for the no-charge Apple receiver. Cut the cord and get rid of cable today with Atmosphere TV. And I'm back with Bryce Henson, CEO of the Fit Body Bootcamp. And Bryce, I want to spend time in this segment talking more about the franchise side of the business, who it is that makes the best franchisee, and how do you go about finding them?
Absolutely. Well, that's certainly very, very relevant to franchisors across the way. Well, to dive in, I guess kind of our avatar is, we call him David, and he's had some success in life in his other careers. Maybe he's worked in finance or banking. He's had a successful career, and he's about his mid-40s, has a couple kids. But the problem was he just hasn't been fulfilled, especially working for the man, being constricted on that, and knew always deep down that he wanted to blaze his own path and have more time freedom and really do something that really affected people. But it wasn't until David went through his own transformation specific to fitness that an aha moment happened that, you know what, maybe this is it. Yes, I've had a successful career. I've learned some professional skills, but I've never really been fully passionate about what I do. I've always wanted to kind of go out on my own and blaze my own path, but I didn't know what it was until I just had this incredible touch with fitness. And once David's had that, it just becomes very clear when they come across our brand that we're able to provide a lot of the solutions, the turnkey solutions for David and a list of other Davids that can really allow our franchisees and David to come in, be supported at a high level, blaze their own path, be their own boss. What we like to say is our franchisees are in business for themselves, but not by themselves. And really that's our focal point on who makes the best franchisee. And really the last bullet point there would just be someone, aside from the specific avatar that I laid out, being very specific about that, but also just someone who's coachable, who's teachable, who's willing to put in the work and not afraid to do that because it's a passion-based people business, but also is willing to take coach and guidance. So a lot of our ideal franchisees either have had a sports background or understand the value of coaching and say they've seen the success in their own life. So that's really what we look for.
What do you do to be certain that the people you're engaging with are the right kind of match? Do you do any assessments of their background backgrounds or their lifestyles or their attitudes and commitments to things? How do you get to know them?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do something called Discovery Days, which we've had to actually put a pause on through COVID just because they're live in-person events. But we do have a streamlined system, and there's a few different touch points about the system where we get their profile, credit checks, certainly financial verification, et cetera. But more than that, like what their life experience has been like. And then also really just reiterating our mission, our vision, our values, which is something that we talk about to our franchisees quite frequently in all of our regional and monthly trainings, but really is something that we instill from day one to make sure that it's a good cultural fit as well. And then finally, they have, aside from our franchise business advisors, there's typically many validation calls, and many of our franchise business coaches also get on the phone with our new prospects throughout entering the process. But then they also have the two last calls with myself being the CEO, and then also our president and founder, Bedros. So these are all just kind of a vetting process that we take our prospects through just to make sure that they're good fits. And truth be told, Stan, we first started in 2012. We did not have this process in play, and we definitely brought on some people and some owners that really didn't fit a line with our mission, our vision, and values. But you live and you learn, and you get better with feedback and assessment. And because of those trials and tribulations, we've been able to really streamline our process and get to a point where the owners that we've been recruiting over the last 2.5 years have just been absolutely on board with our mission, vision, values, and they've been extremely successful out of the gates. And it's because majorly in part of the process that we put together.
What about single versus multi-unit ownership? What's the average profile look like across your brand today? And how many units are there today?
We have just south of 300 operating locations, and we have another 50 in development. In terms of multi versus single locations, really the bread and butter, because it's a people relationship business, most of our franchisees actually have one location, although there's still many that have a second location. We do have some of our owners that have upwards of 8 locations. Two friends of mine named Ben and Matt. Ben's in Arizona, Matt's in Michigan, that have really painted the map in their area with their Fit Body Bootcamp locations. The one thing that we like to see if we are looking at exploring multi-location operations, at least from the start, is someone who probably doesn't have fitness experience, which is fine, and maybe doesn't even have their own business experience or entrepreneur's experience, but they do have leadership and management experience, because we do have the turnkey solution, the processes, the systems, what we call the Fit Body way. But if an owner is planning to scale to multiple locations, they do, at least from the onset, have some of those skills already there in order to lead a team of people, typically young people, because coaching industry, many of our fitness coaches are young. But aside from that, going back to the one location owners, which many of our location owners are, it's really just an incredible way. And we're looking for people, because again, the training is just one part of it, but it's the relationships, it's the culture, it's the magic, it's the energy. I mean, we like to say that we want to deliver the magic, kind of like Walt Disney and Disney does for their clientele. It's far more than just an amusement ride. It's an experience. It's the magic. That's what we're looking to replicate. And that's why many times our owners who own one location, they're able to do that at a very high level, because while they're not coaching and doing all the management work, or at least the operations day in and day out, at least not all of them, they still have oversight on the full-on entity and the magic and the cultural experience that we provide our clientele.
Do you work through broker networks, or do you sell directly to prospects yourself?
We sell directly through prospects. Now, we have had success with some other broker partnerships. Things actually just kind of got on halt with COVID. So that's actually a topic of our conversation at our leadership meeting over the next quarter. But in citing my business partner and our founder, Bedros, he's an incredible marketer. So we found a lot of success because of our marketing prowess of being able to recruit, develop, and market and sell direct to our franchisees.
Bryce, I wanted to ask you too about benevolence. Is there a favorite charity involved?
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you asked, Dan. Our preferred charity organization is Shriners Children's Hospital. And actually going back deep-seated, our founder, my business partner, as referred to, Bedros, he's openly shares about this, but he was molested as a child and has a very deep sense of basically providing value to the world through our children. So that's our preferred go-to. And we typically raise about $100,000 on a yearly basis through a program we call Charity Check-In, which is an ethical bribe for our clients every time they work out of the studio, when they check in on social media, which is great social media presence for the brand. Also allows us to inspire more of our community to really change lives, which is our company mission. But also we donate to Shriners, and that's been an incredible relationship and partnership. And we've changed a lot of children's lives, and they're just an incredible organization that we just love to connect with.
Can't help but run across those commercials almost daily as I watch TV as a consumer myself. Bryce, I'm wondering if you're able to help the audience figure out how you manage these these two full-time gigs between being corporate and a franchisee. Each of those is a full-time job, and you appear to be doing two of those and doing them well. What's a typical day in your life look like?
Oh, well, Stan, that is the million-dollar question, and my wife probably has some different thoughts on this, but I love it. I really love who we are, what we do. I strongly believe in our mission. And the reason is because even more than a franchisee, I'm actually a client of Fit Body Bootcamp. So we practice getting at least 3 high-intensity interval training workouts a week, and I do just that, which allows me, one, to get a great fitness result, lead a healthier life, but also allows me to be a better coach, be a better owner, and then also serve our franchisees at a higher level because boots on the ground, the CEO is also a Fit Body Bootcamp client. But it is a lot of work. To your point, it is 2 full-time jobs. I don't take too much time off. That's the reality of the situation, but I'm on fire. I'm deeply passionate about who we are and what we do, and I think that's what keeps me going. I have a very rigid schedule. I have an awesome support staff. I have 5 incredible people, incredible ladies that kind of help manage my schedule, both at the franchisor and franchisee level. Pretty much most of my time is very scripted, and I take Sunday afternoons off to spend time with my better half. But aside from that, it's a full court press sprint, but I love it because I'm so passionate. So that's kind of a big overview, but I'm happy to color in any details if you have another insight or questions.
Yes, on the corporate side, where would you be spending most of your time these days? Is it as a development person, as a technology person? I know you've got your hands in both.
Yeah, great question. Well, it's changed since 2018 when I joined forces at the franchisor level. My first line of opportunity and focus, I noticed that we could do a better job at that period of time of coaching our franchisees, not just the systems and operations, which we've had and we've continued to add on, develop from that, but also the coaching element. And we had franchise business coaches that had operational experience, but I thought, and I turned to Bedros at one point, I was like, who better to actually coach our franchisees than another very successful franchisee? And that's actually the first idea that created the coaching and profitability department. We recruited 6 of the best franchisees, most successful franchisees across North America, 5 of them in the US and 1 in Canada. And they actually are the lifeblood of coaches that really develop and coach our owners on a day-to-day basis. So from spinning that department up to creating the systems, the processes, and the standardized coaching was a massive endeavor. And that's been where a lot of my time has been focused. And then recently, it's been actually to another project has been develop our custom-based CRM. And a few years ago, we made a decision to partner with a technology company that actually had a lot of big clients within the franchising space. As it turns out, they weren't a good fit for us. And I was a miss, being very direct and candid. However, I always like to say and teach our franchisees that every challenge, there's a seed of opportunity. And through going through that experience, which was not pleasurable and very challenging at that, it shone a light on the opportunity for us to actually develop a custom solution. So one of our franchisees in Arizona is married to a gentleman named Antonio, who's now a business partner, and created a technology company specifically to help his wife's location, which we've then now partnered with. And over the last year and a half have created a custom CRM, including billing, that we're just launching and actually migrating our brand to. So that's been a huge, huge focus because from our perspective, our locations perspective, and especially in today's day and age, technology is the lifeblood of business operations. So those are 2 big projects that really have taken a lot of my focus over the last 24 months. But then big picture, just business operations, having all our departments report to me. And then now kind of being past the sales baton as Bedros still kind of oversees the marketing and the visionary of our brand. But now I've taken that kind of sales aspect underneath my wing. So a lot of things involved to really help push the brand forward.
I'm going to ask you for a quick disclaimer. While we're not going to name that debacle of a company that you had a problem with, we are going to suggest that you tell us it was not FRM Solutions.
That would be correct. It is not FRM Solutions.
Gotta check that box off. FRM is a little near and dear to my heart.
Well, I'm glad you did. But yes, the air is clear. That is definitely not the case.
I guess it's time, Bryce, for me to ask you if there's anything I haven't asked that you wished I would have.
Oh, shoot. That's an incredible question. I would actually just take the opportunity to ask the question on the current state of health and fitness of our country and where the projections are heading to. Can you kind of tee up a question there?
Sure. I think you just did. So go ahead and fire away with your answer.
I think when you strip this down, especially as we're hopefully in the tail end of COVID here, and the fitness industry, the restaurant industry, many industries have suffered. That's the truth of it. What's really kept our big passion burning, even in some of the dark days, was just the focus on our mission. And the reason our mission statement is to inspire fitness and change lives every day, but way more than a tagline, this is our life's work. And the reason we're so passionate about it is our country is facing, in what my humble opinion, is the biggest pandemic, which is not COVID, and no disrespect to COVID, but it's the obesity pandemic. And as of the CDC's last report, which actually was 2018, which I'm still kind of scratching my head why more recent data has not been produced. But as of 2018, 42% of the American population population. We're statistically obese, and it's been increasing at a 2.5% clip over the last 20 years. So realistically, we're north of 45, and projections say by 2030, well over half our country will be statistically obese. And you might be thinking, okay, Stan, well, why is that a huge deal? Well, obesity in the human body makes everything work harder. It compounds any situation, any bad disease, COVID-19, heart disease, stroke. It's really the foundation for a lot of really bad issues, including type 2 diabetes. So I really kind of hammer that home because millions of people are dying on a yearly basis, which is not something that's covered, but it's something that's near and dear to our hearts here at Fit Body Bootcamp, because our mission is to inspire fitness and change lives. Really, we are trying to combat the biggest pandemic in the history of our planet, which is the obesity pandemic. So I really want to obviously add value to your listeners by providing a lot of business and mindset and systematic franchisor perspective, but also just really reiterate the point that for anyone listening, I really hope that whatever your line of work is, whatever franchise system that you align yourself with, you're really passionate about your mission and calling, because that's really what we're looking for to do and accomplish in the franchising industry.
That's great stuff, and I appreciate you sharing it. Speaking of sharing, how about some contact info?
Oh, absolutely. Well, all my social media profiles, you can find me at Real Bryce Henson, not to be confused with fake Bryce Henson. So Real Bryce Henson would be all my social media. And then you can find my website, brycehenson.com, and all my contact information listed is there as well.
It's been a real pleasure getting to know you, Bryce, and I hope that this is just the tip of the iceberg and that we continue to communicate and stay in touch with one another as we march back out into the open again and start seeing people live and direct at conferences along the way.
Well, I appreciate that, Stan. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate your energy and what you're doing over this podcast and your experience in the franchising industry, and excited for what's ahead.
Bryce Henson, thanks for being with us today. Next week, we're joined by Joe Seavey, a 25-year franchise veteran. Joe's an operations, development, and strategy guru with a strong entrepreneurial spirit, using cross-functional collaboration to increase enterprise value at Inspire Brands, the franchisors of Arby's, Baskin-Robbins, Buffalo Wild Wings, Dunkin', Jimmy John's, Rusty Taco, and Sonic Drive-In restaurants. Collectively, Inspire's portfolio includes nearly 32,000 locations in more than 60 countries and all 50 states. Joe Seavey, next week, right here on Franchise Today. Until then, I'm Stan Friedman, wishing you the best, the very best of all things franchising, and Franchise Today is out.
Franchise Today is a production of FRM Solutions, providing best-in-class CRM tools to empower relationships with prospective and existing franchisees. No excuses, just solutions. Find them online at frmsolutions.com. Join Stan every Wednesday at noon Eastern for another live episode of Franchise Today. Or, as always, download episodes on demand at blogtalkradio.com or iTunes.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. So at American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.